I did teach for a long period of my life, but this is the first time since 5 years of actually having a group of people in front of me listening.
Different age groups.
We won't throw anything at you.
Please. You can go now. Right. As some of you know, I paddle on the Thames locally, and that's where I get most of my inspiration from, being down on the water. Once on the water and paddling away from the brick and concrete, you went to another, more natural realm. You think you know an area, once at water level, you become immersed at a lower perspective, and sometimes, if you're lucky, you see that flash of gold and turquoise. Although fleeting, it leaves a sense of awe, having seen something very special. I find the wet-on-wet technique of watercolour and the gold foil works perfectly in capturing that flash, that moment when you see one. I rarely see one just sitting on a branch. It's usually they're just flying by, or we've scared them as we're canoeing along and they've moved on. A bit of my past, my brother and I were mostly brought up in the Lake District near the Keswick area. My parents moved up in '74 with Chris and I barely 3 and 4 years old to a world of farmlands, stone walls, lakes and fells. The fells, the lakes, the becks soon became our playground, and with it our awareness of nature. One of the best experiences I've ever had of nature was when at a primary school a visitor brought a group of owls to the school. Forget Hogwarts, this was truly allowing 5-year-olds to hold and pet owls left amazing expression until they turned their heads. In the Thames Valley and Chilterns, we are very fortunate to have an amazing array of bird life, from the swooping kites to the dabbling ducks on the river. As an artist, I like to capture their grace and fleeting colours. These wonders, both small and large, provide the inspiration for my work. I'm not a purist. I don't specialise in one media. I like to dabble and use whatever comes to mind to get the perfect job. So I'll mix watercolours and inks, I'll mix charcoals and pens, I'll try and pull the detail out of the chaos. So a drawing like the owls here will start off like as a thick cover of charcoal, followed by a session with a rubber, a clean rubber, rubbing back. So you're almost working in reverse, trying to pull the highlights of the wings, the eyes out of the picture, or maybe, possibly, moonlight on an owl's feathery body. All the work, whether it finishes in colour, will start off as drawings, whether it's graphite or charcoal. I know certain birds, flamingos and kingfishers, you've got to do in colour, but I like the intimacy of black and white, monochrome. You can capture, I feel I can capture so much character with just from a sparrow to a kingfisher, and it just adds that little bit more like a character to me. At the start of the year, I'm back on the water again, canoeing, and who better to share the ripples with the dabbling ducks, friendly and calm on the surface, but paddling mighty fast beneath the water, which also describes my canoes. So on the subject of ducks, I've got a few duck pictures over there, and as I say, I like drawing, and certain techniques capture certain birds better than others. So the watercolours capture the kingfishers, but the graphite and charcoal captures the sort of softness of ducks, sparrows and owls. But while on the water, I noticed the ripples. The ripples are there, then they're not there. They're there, they're not there. And I didn't want to just paint thick lines of ripples, so I wanted to emboss the paper. I've always liked embossed work. So I thought, how am I going to do that? So I did the drawings, and they take a while to do, and then I fixed them. And then I cut out with card sinuous shapes of ripples, or I suppose are ripples, and then fixed them on a separate card. I wet the whole piece of work I spent a week doing in the bath, laid them on the card shapes, and then put it through a press. I didn't have a press at the time, but I do have a car. So I literally drove backwards and forwards over the work with a towel. The neighbours are like watching, he's doing that thing again, he's going backwards and forwards. And sometimes it works, sometimes the alignment works, sometimes it goes a little bit off. But it captures what I wanted, which is you see the little ripples, you don't see the ripples, they're there, they're not there. It's not a big fat line, so in different lights you do see them and other times you don't. So it was a success, but sometimes artists create techniques because you don't have the full array of stuff. You don't have an art shop at your disposal, it costs and everything, so you use what comes best or second. So a car. Luckily Alex has now bought a nice new press so I can try that. Right, like I say, it is a hobby. I do have another job, and I don't know if I would want to do it as a full-time job because that would maybe put pressure on what you're selling and so forth. But as a hobby, I will try different medias. You have good days, you have bad days. Some days the paint flows, some days it doesn't. Especially with watercolours and the wet-on-wet technique I use, it works, it doesn't work. And that is like canoeing on the river. You've got floods, you've got waves, you've got undercurrents. And when I'm on the water, I will follow the water around the banks, around the islands, under the bridges. And it's all about the flow of things. I mean, water has always been part of my life. I learned to swim quite early on, and then canoeing and sailing followed. And living in the Lake District, you get wet quite often. The maps. I've developed the use of maps to show where I can live on the Thames, but also possibly to show what the birds see. They're looking down. It could be a bird's eye view. They're above us. They can see the bigger picture. Conventionally, you work with a fresh new piece of watercolour paper, and it's a joy to have the luminosity of the white paper coming through. But with the maps, you get the contours, the church spires coming through, and they become part of the picture. And when I had the idea, I thought, oh, this could work. But it's actually given the pictures a lot more depth than I ever envisaged, because it's a transparent media you're looking at. You can see things that you wouldn't normally see, because I've covered a lot of it in the foil. Your attention goes to certain areas, which is the Thames Valley. So, and having shown them for quite a bit this year, people like pointing out where they've been, where they've seen things, also where they live, and so forth. But to me, it's layered. There's lots of different layers that work together. It's been difficult because maps are waterproof. Otherwise they wouldn't work. But watercolours require watercolour paper, so it's taken a while to get them to work together. So you stretch them and then you cover them with a ground, and then after several hours you can start working on top of them. But it's always it's quite spontaneous what can happen. The birds of prey, the owls, and in the browser there's quite a lot of birds of prey, come from visits to falconry sessions. So they usually start you off with little owls, and then they build you up to the big ones. So you're standing there with your glove on, and then suddenly you've got a big kite on your arm. He's looking at you, eyeballing you, thinking food. You've got your camera thinking portrait. It is amazing having something that big and beautiful, that's powerful and scary on your arm, but it's just really nice. I don't think you've got the ideas. I need a volunteer. Who would like to be a volunteer? Volunteer, right, so. Right. So imagine what people are. Now, you've got. Yes. Maybe turn your hand up for your ear. So there you go. So turn your hand and you can do the other. But then you've got your phone in your other hand. You've got your phone, just have this one. And you're trying to get the photo that he's going to sell your work. At the same time, he's looking at you thinking, those fingers. So I think we got the idea there. But as I say, they start, thank you very much. Round of applause. As I say, they start you off with little owls and then they build you up. But if I can advise anyone, just do go on a falconry session. It is amazing having something that you see in the sky all the time, but seeing them come down to you. We were with a lady down at Feather and Bracknell, and she just whistled and this peregrine falcon flew down at something like 60 miles an hour. It was scary and she was going to land on our arms. So it was very good. Previous art themes have included architecture. Both my wife and I, Kath, love going to National Trust buildings. Kath likes to listen to the history of the place, who lived there, what happens there, who's who and so forth. Whereas I like looking at the shapes and forms, the rich architecture from the ceramics and copper statues to the wood and marble architecture. And these I arrange into dramatic compositions and then eventually draw and then paint. So I've got a few of these scattered around the rooms. They're blue ones, they're prints. So normally they're big watercolours, but it's the only thing I've ever had printed. But I still, to this day, go to a National Trust building, I will like looking at the architecture.
There's a page fell on the floor right there.
All right.
Oh, I've done
That's a
that
good
one. Right. So, if you have enjoyed looking at these pieces, and for one, I have one thing to say, that the viewing doesn't quite convey the full experience. If you want to understand what it's truly like, then I can only suggest you have a go for yourselves. Get on the river, whether it's a boat, canoe, paddleboard, it just changes your perspective. You think you know an area, but once you're at water level, it is truly different. And you don't have to go far, so just do that and have a go. If you've got any questions, please fire away. Thank you.
Thank you.
No questions, good.
Andy, just your architectural, how did you settle on the blue colour for those pieces?
Right, yes. So this one, as you can see, it's all in blue, and all the others are in blue. As an artist, you should realise that certain colours go together naturally, and blues, it doesn't matter whether you have turquoise, cobalt, ultramarine, all blues go together. So it is a bit of a cop-out. They do work well, whereas certain colours, red shouldn't be seen with green and things like that. It's just, it's an easy way, but I like monochrome on work, so that's why I did. So this one was based upon Basildon, so I go around the place, I love the stairs and everything, and you sort of, I've always been impressed by the artist Escher, how they sort of how he makes things flow together, and that's what I like doing on pieces.
Good question.
Hello.
So sometimes when you see an artist, they sort of say they spend like half the time just doing like the eyes of a person or something, because that's where all the emotion is. Is there any element of the painting which you sort of
It's
really
true.
focus on?
Because when I'm canoeing, you just see that moment.
Yeah.
You don't want to do a statuesque picture of something. I have done that before where you've drawn almost every feather, and it just doesn't work. It looks amazing, but it doesn't capture that moment when they're taking off or landing on your arm. And it's the same with the kingfisher. So I just tend to focus on the eye and the beak, and then with the wet on wet technique of watercolour, you just let the colours flow around you. And mixing inks with watercolours, you do get that explosion of what works and what doesn't work. So, and then throwing a bit of salt in it, so the whole kitchen table ends up on a log. So you just have to experiment. So yes, you do focus on one or two bits.
Yeah.
And it leaves more for the viewer to interpret. So what you see may be different to see what you see. So, it's a good question. Hello.
How do you put the gold on the picture? That makes sense. Is
The
this-
gold leaf,
Yeah.
or Amazon's version, is a wondrous thing. You put down what is called size, which is like glue, and you wait for it to get super tacky, and then it comes in little 4-inch squares, and you literally lay it all over the piece, and then you sort of rub it down and then leave it to dry. That simplifies it, saying it like that, but you never get a continuous cover of gold. So it is literally like this. It's thinner than a Kit Kat wrapper, and when you rub it off, it benefits me because I don't want a perfect covering of gold. You get a dappled effect, and you have to burnish it, so you can rub it back in certain areas to make it less kitsch. So that's how it works. It is temperamental, but you have to work with it. If you wanted something super gold, super covered, then you do have to prepare in the background beforehand. That counts rather than actually laying the sheets. It does. What I'm pleased about, it doesn't matter where you have them in the room. They change the opaqueness of the gold, and that's what I'm trying to capture within the work. Thank you.